Research methods, the foundation by which psychology obtains interesting facts and theories, but also dreaded by the many psychology students that must learn it. But how are these facts and theories gathered? This animation will outline the basics of research methods in psychology and how this scientific-based method can create a psychological study. This channel would obviously not exist without a wealth of political psychology research articles, so let's investigate how to conduct research in psychology. To start the process, psychologists don't sit down with a blank piece of paper and think of wild ideas to investigate. A research question must be properly informed by reading the existing literature. Then, by reading the literature, might a reason be found to investigate something. This can be a gap in the research, outdated research, or the research is methodologically flawed. An example hypothetical study will be presented to help demonstrate this process. This is not an actual study, but just how a study might be made. If we want to understand the lifestyles between conservatives and liberals, we must start reading political psychology journals. We might find little information about how happy liberals and conservatives are, conjuring a new research question: are conservatives happier than liberals? We take this question, and all our gathered research, to show that we have justified why we should investigate it. As an idea, we do know liberals are more neurotic and anxious than conservatives. This could lead us to make our hypothesis or prediction, that conservatives are to be happier than liberals because liberals are more neurotic. All of this is written as the introduction part of our study. It describes the existing literature, explains the gap in the research, justifies the research question, and makes a hypothesis or prediction about what we will find when it comes to conducting our study with participants. The next section is all about how we are going to test our research question and prediction, how we are to gain participants, and how to analyse our results. First of all, we need a research design. This is what is used to plan out the study. There are many to choose from, such as a laboratory experiment, which is used a lot in cognitive psychology, or handing out questionnaires to participants, which is seen a lot of in personality psychology. To choose the correct one can be directed by the research used in the introduction. Based on what previous research designs have been used, this can be adopted again and refined. Research designs are also influenced by what is called qualitative or quantitative methods of analysis. Qualitative is long subjective interpretations of the data. This would be seen more in research designs like interviews and case studies where participants are asked open questions to give them more detailed insights. Quantitative is the usage of mathematical statistical testing to measure the results. This is used predominantly in self-report designs, which is what a study like ours would adopt. In our example of happiness between conservatives and liberals, this would be a personality psychology research because we are measuring personality traits. The optimal method here is to hand out questionnaires, or what we have named as the self-report method. We will need 3 valid psychological questionnaires to measure each participant's political attitude, personality, and happiness. These wouldn't be questions like, do you consider yourself happy right now? It would be multiple questions relating to happiness, which gives us an overall score on how happy someone might be. There are 2 other fundamental parts to the research design. Operationalize, which means that we are certain the experiment, observation, or self-report measures are valid and reliable. Then ethics, ensuring participants are granted confidentiality, consent, and an active effort is made to ensure no distress occurs. Once the method is chosen, planned out, and equipment gathered, it's time to start recruiting. There are 3 common ways in which researchers can gather participants. Finding a sample of participants that is readily available, such as a class of psychology students to partake in a study as part of their course, this is called opportunistic sampling. A randomized method takes a sample of potential participants and selects each one at random, meaning neither the researcher or participant is the one to be given the opportunity to take part in the study. The third way is volunteer. Simply meant is when a study is advertised and participants respond to volunteer in the study. This contains the issue of the participant being motivated to be part of the study, especially if there is some reward for participation. Once enough participants have been recruited, it's time to put them to the test. Say our study recruited 200 participants through a local newspaper to get our volunteer sample. We send out the questionnaires for each participant to complete and return back. Each participant completes our 3 questionnaires. So we see their different personality traits, who is happier than others, and how many are politically liberal or conservative. When it comes to scoring a self-report questionnaire, it is dependent on the type of question. A common question asked in questionnaires is a Likert scale, where participants rate themselves as agree, neutral, or disagree on a question. Disagree answers would mark a negative score, and agree answers a positive score. Psychologists also input reverse questions into the questionnaire, meaning the question asked goes against what we are measuring and scores are reversed. For example, in the happiness questionnaire, an item could read, "Would you say you feel depressed more than others?" Obviously, an agreed answer on this question would insinuate unhappiness. Therefore, we must flip the scoring system, hence it is called a reversed question. Afterwards, participants are debriefed for ethical reasons so they are aware of the aims of the research and how their data will be used, which of course needs to have consent beforehand, and participants have the right to withdraw at any time. Now we have all our data, we thank the participants for their participation and move on to the final parts of the study, where we will find out if our research question was answered. First, we must screen the data. This ensures all the participant data is not corrupted. We find that 25 people did not fill out every item on the questionnaire, so we must exclude these participants, leaving us with 175 participants' data to use. Now, how do we analyse the data? This is when either the qualitative or quantitative part of our research design comes into play. We have already chosen a quantitative research design, so we must choose one of the many statistical tests available to us. In particular, we would use what is called a regression analysis. This will allow us to see the many different relationships between all the traits in our participants. What we are looking for is significant results, which means a relationship does exist between one variable and another. A non-significant result would mean that we cannot determine a relationship between the 2 variables. After running our data from statistical programs, we find everything we need to know in our results. We have to report our results raw and then highlight our findings. Let's say in our study we are surprised. Participants who rated themselves as politically liberal were actually higher in happiness compared to conservatives, despite also rating themselves as high on neuroticism. If these are to be all significant relationships, then we did answer our research question, but have to reject our prediction, as we are wrong, but our findings are still valid. In the results section, we only report our data and statistical findings. This is where everything is combined, hence it is usually the longest part of a psychological study. Examinations of the results are interpreted and related back to the research from the introduction to theorise why the results reported the way they did. What limitations might have we experienced when it came to our research design? For example, maybe our participants were influenced by social desirability, meaning participants manipulated their answers and did not respond how they truly felt. This can happen even if participants are reporting anonymously. This might have been an issue with the way participants were recruited. So let's return to our introduction. Did we measure what we wanted to, and what are the implications of our prediction? As we got significant results, happiness is something that is present between personality and political attitudes. Therefore, we can suggest investigating the lifestyles of political attitudes could help us understand the difference between political attitudes better. Our prediction being wrong is not a bad thing, it just informs the discussion in a different way. Before, we thought people who were more liberal or neurotic, that they might be the ones less happy. This being found not to be the case suggests maybe the personality trait neuroticism might have very little to do with happiness between political attitudes, leading us to theorise how personality relates to lifestyles in political attitudes and what overall happiness means for conservatives and liberals. We might even suggest qualitative methods of research in political psychology is warranted, to gain more detailed insight as to why participants rate themselves as more liberal or conservative in relation to their personality traits. With this, we conclude our study and it becomes part of the literature, for another researcher to come along and find inspiration for their own study. Thank you to all our viewers supporting this channel. To go along with this animation, here is a poster that outlines the process of making research in psychology, helpful to students or anyone interested in psychology. Thank you.